All right, good day everyone. My name is Fambougouri Diane, and today the topic of my research is on analyzing anthropogenic and climatic trends on regional farms. So as we all know, the topic of climate change has been the center of attention for quite a while now, and as such, we all should be concerned because as climate change persists, the frequency of drought is also expected to increase, which will have significant impact on food production, water supply, and energy security. My study focuses on drought prediction. Why studying drought? Well, drought has the ability to impact our food production, right? And as you can see in the form here, drought can put at risk our agricultural production and what else? Sorry, this is my first time presenting. I'm kind of having a little blur here.
You're good. So yeah, that's important. So let's go on.
Yeah. So drought can put at risk our agricultural production, right? So imagine if you have consistent crop failure in a farm, right? This will have significant impact on our harvest. This can also affect health through lack of nutrients in crops such as corn, rice, vegetables, you name it. And this can also impact human beings as well as animals because these are the crops that we consume, right? The fact that drought has the ability to affect or cause this much damage is the reason why it is important to study and monitor drought. So drought, I want to give you a personal example, right? Because traditionally, drought prediction was mostly based on one factor, which was climate, to predict drought, so that farmers can be more resilient to drought, right? But we're seeing that there are other factors. In fact, there are anthropogenic factors, human activities that contribute to drought. And we will not look at other factors, not only limiting ourselves to climate, because we believe that climate is not the whole or the sole predictor of drought. So that's why we would like to take a look at other causes, in this case, anthropogenic drought, right? So the problem that we have nowadays is human activities such as widespread cutting down of trees for fuel. This human activity has the ability to reduce the soil, ability to hold water, drying out the ground, triggering desertification, therefore leading to drought. And you also have water stress caused by urbanization, population growth, industrial development, release of green gas emission in the air. So all these human activities are massive water consumers. And as we all know, in agriculture, water is very, very important. In fact, without water, no agriculture, no food, health issues, right? So in the United States alone, agriculture accounts for 80% of water use. And the problem with us nowadays in this day and age is that we use a lot of water, and how much water would be left for farmers to really water the crops? And that's the challenge, and that's the question. And that's why we don't want to take a look again at one factor, which is climate, to predict drought for farmers so that they can be more resilient to drought. In fact, we're not excluding climate. We would like to include our factors and, you know, kind of model another drought prediction for farmers so that our drought prediction can be more accurate. I will give you a personal example. As we were coming to Tallahassee yesterday, we were supposed to land here at 4:15, if I'm not mistaken, or 4:45. But due to the weather, we couldn't land. And, you know, we had to deviate to go to Jacksonville to land there. So that's why climatic factors are now very accurate if we want to base our drought prediction study on only that specific factor. Because as we all know, weather can be unpredictable, right? You may have all seen it, and you might all probably experience it in your cities, where you see or you hear the weather guy on TV stating that today is gonna be nice, but as soon as you step outside, it's otherwise. It might be raining in the morning, it might be shining during the afternoon, and you might have a storm during the evening. So that's what we're saying, that drought prediction to be more accurate to farmers so that they can be more resilient and not only be solely based on, climatic factors again. So we're saying that human activities have the potential to exacerbate drought. And those human activities that I talked about in the previous slides are major factors that really contribute to increasing drought. You have deforestation, right? When you don't have a lot of trees, that means less rainfall. Less rainfall means no water in our aquifers, in our storage. So that means that farmers have to rely on aquifers. And in some states, such as Arizona, they're seeing a lot of, drought, from time to time, and they don't really receive a lot of rainfalls. So imagine if farmers have to rely on aquifers, and also local population also have to rely on aquifers, then there is a problem because, again, agriculture accounts for 80% of water use, right? So if both farmers have to rely on water to help us grow food so that we can eat food, and they are relying on the same source as us to use our water, is going to be a problem. And that's why we are looking at factors such as anthropogenic factors, human activities, and climate to kind of like bridge them together and create a model projection for farmers, again, so that they can be more resilient to drought. Research objectives. In order to best understand the mechanism, right? So we looked at 3 statistical relationships. So we looked at the statistical relationship between climate change and water deficit. And what do I mean by that? Climate change, as we all know, temperature, climate variability. The example I give, climate can be unpredictable, and your water deficit. Water deficit in this case is how much water do farmers have to use to compensate for the lack of rainfall that they didn't receive throughout the year. And we also looked at the second relationship, statistical relationship between climate change and corn yield. In this case, we looked at a specific crop, which was corn, and how does, because also drought has the ability to impact yielding, right? And the third relationship that we looked at is corn yield and water deficit. How does the lack of water, right, impacts corn yield? So it is important to note that these statistical relationships are the first step we need to take in order for us to do this model prediction for drought, which is different, from the traditional way of predicting drought, which was solely based on climate again. So these are the 2 statistical relationships that we took a look at, and we're gonna find out about the result and see if it really worked out. So the method that we used. So I know I talked about it, I said that climate is not the sole predictor of predicting drought. So as such, we need to come up with numbers, statistical, relationships, so that we can accurately say that, okay, this is how human activity impacts drought, right? So the method that we used was linear regression. We use linear regression to study and understand the statistical relationship, the strength of the statistical relationships between those data that I talked about in the previous slide. And after finding the strength of the correlationships, we put it together and we aggregated it to have an average for each regions. So in this case, I decided to take a look at the Northeast and Southeast and Southwest region. So we also conducted a qualitative analysis that was completed for each region using policy, using water, and economy reports to understand the human, again, mechanism that may cause each result. And the data that we used is from the Meteorological Organization, NOAA, and the corn yield data. So basically we use data or yielding data for corn throughout a certain period of time from 1960 up until 2009. And yes, and we also use the water deficit data to kind of like put it into a graph format so that we can accurately say that, okay, it's not only climatic factors that lead to drought. So this is the first region, Northwest region. So as you can see in the first two graphs, we have climate and water deficit, right? You can see that the statistical relationship here is not strong, and it's almost in fact zero, it's weak, right? Because like I said, climate really doesn't impact yielding in some cases, right? And this demonstrates that. This way too, climate and yield, as you can see, there is no correlation at all in the northwest region. It is important to understand that each region is different depending on where you are in the United States. Some region may have, some region climate may impact yielding in some regions, and climate may not impact yielding in some regions. But the interesting part is that water deficit really impacts yielding, as you can see here. So over here, this is the 90th percentile. So this means that there is a strong correlation over here. So in this study, we can actually see that water deficit, again, the way we use water, have the ability to impact yielding in the northwest region. It's pretty much the same thing too in the southeast region, where you have almost no correlation here between climate and water deficit, climate and yield. But when you look at water deficit and yield, you have a strong correlation. Water deficit impacts yield, and it should make sense because, like I talked about in the previous slides, water accounts for 80% of agricultural use. The third result in the southwest region, you have almost no correlation here between climate and yield, but I want to point out that, like I said, it might be different for each region, but in this specific case, climate does have an impact on yielding, right? As you can see here in the other two previous slides, the first slides here, the first graph, there was almost no correlation, right? In the northwest, southwest, but it's interesting that in the southwest region, climate does have a role over there. So again, depending on each region within the United States, or we can be even more general within each region, depending where you are in the world, climate can impact yielding and water deficit. And over here too, this stays the same. So what can we conclude? In conclusion, I know I'm saying that over and over, we can say that it's not all related to climate. In fact, through the graph that I showed, I was able to find out or to show that human activities such as deforestation, water use, globalization, urbanization, those have also the ability to exacerbate drought, not only climate. In fact, if we base our drought prediction only on climate, it might not be accurate. As you all know, climate can be unpredictable. And in order for if we want to help farmers to be more resilient to drought, we need to, study and make sure that the prediction that we're gonna give to farmers is accurate. And that's why we're saying that it is more human-driven than climate, a drought, anthropogenic drought, a drought that is human-driven. And this concludes my study, and thank you everyone for listening.
We have time for questions if there are any.
Great presentation. So I have a question about the data. Is this data from the same year? Because I know, water can vary from year to year. There are years that are drier than others.
No, it's not from the same way. If you recall, I talked about it. The data that we used was from 1960 up until 2009. So it's not, only for a year. Like you said, water can change, and due to the weather, you might have different variabilities according to the year, right? So that's the data that we use. And also the crops that we used was corn, and we were looking at the yielding of crops throughout those years. And those are the data that we used.
And is this like annual averages per year?
Yes, annual averages, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yep.
Did you compute the R squared or some quality of fit with those curves? Because there was a couple you pointed out, strong relationships.
Mhm.
It looked like there was a tremendous amount of scattered. The two that stood out to me that looked like good fits were in the southeast and the northeast.
Southeast.
The right-hand ones that are water deficit, that I think you pointed
These
out.
ones?
I think it's the southwest region, you pointed out the one on the left, yeah.
Yeah, this one.
But
So-
that's a good fit, and it looks like a lot of scattered.
Oh, I'm sorry, you said?
Far-fetched to say that's a good fit.
You said?
It doesn't look like it's it doesn't look like it's a good fit to me. There's a lot of scatter as compared to say the water deficit versus yield. That's my perception. That's why I was wondering if you had computed.
Yeah, we have computed
That's
using
where-
the programming language R. And that's why, again, if you go back to the, I don't know if you can see over here. Let me go back to one step. So basically, I'm not really good at programming, but I was trying to do my best. So over here, I, put these over here so that people can really understand the relationships, right? And if you can take a look at it, it's in the range of zeros, right? So that's why there wasn't no correlation over here. But in the third slide, you can see that there is a strong correlation because, it's all over there, right?
I'm not so sure. I'd like to see the R squared values. That's what I'm suggesting.
Oh, the R square value. Oh, sorry, I didn't put it over here.
This is
Yeah,
also
but
want
that's a good point.
to point out, I don't know if you're familiar with Hopi Indians, the tribe, their practices of growing corn is ancient, and they grow, their corn yields are very high with very, very low precipitation.
Mhm.
So I point that out because looking at the big picture, what the impact of all this is that we may need to adapt growing practices to things that are more adaptable to climate change. And the way we've been doing it is large scale farming. This is a different topic. Related.
Another question?
Is there a reason why you did your study in 1960 and 2009? If you had extrapolated your studies in 2018, would you allow something like different? You do not have access to that data? What?
Like I said, since this is like a related new study, so the data that was given to me was actually from 1960 up until 2009. But I did wanted to extend it a little bit to kind of like maybe 2016 or even now 2022. But unfortunately, that was the data I was given to work with, and I wasn't able to get the same data because I think you have to ask permission for it. And when I started the research, that's what my mentor gave me actually. So you have to ask permission, I believe, from NOAA to gain access to those data. Yeah, and that's the reason why I limited myself from 1960 to 2009. If that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you for the great presentation. I was just gonna point out that somebody just asked for the Southwest region, it was not a good fit on the first graph that given what you saw us, looks like it's a better fit goal than the others. Although it's not like a strong correlation, but it is a better correlation than the others, like the Northeast and yeah, that's what I want.
You said you use an ONS model?
Is that
You say you use an ONS model?
what was that?
What model do you use?
Linear regression.
So
I think I'm going to cut off the discussion because we should get to the next speakers so that they have enough time. But you're welcome to continue with talking about the presentation afterwards. So thank you.
No problem.